Howdy howdy, my name's Toast, and like the rest of the world, I have been overtaken by everything that is K-pop demon hunters. So much so that the non-fan artist that I am immediately was like, I need to do fan art of these girls, because of course I do. And so, what better way to make myself to do fan art of them than immediately turn these girls into a D&D party, because that's who I am in my heart. Now, before we officially get into the designing of the girls, I do want to make a quick little disclaimer, and you can watch me work on, or struggle with, I'll say, the poses in the background here. Now, D&D is a fantasy game that is based off of the legends and the myths of old from all places, not just the West, right? Now, that means that the original trio of singers in K-pop Demon Hunters is a perfectly viable option for a D&D party in Dungeons & Dragons. Obviously. That being said, I didn't want to just put these girls in traditional Korean clothing. One, because I'm not the person to do that. I am not Korean. There's hundreds of other Korean artists that could do that way better than me, and they probably already have, so you should go check those out. And two, Korea's a cool place, but it's not where I take all of my inspiration from. I love mixing cultures of all kind, and so I wanted to take that into my design philosophy in these characters. So you'll see some Korean influence, but I didn't just limit myself to that. I was just going for what kind of fantasy I think is cool, and I put it on those girls. So I just wanted to put that out there up front, if you were wondering why there wasn't as much Korean influence as maybe there could have been. Alright, first up, we are starting with my favorite of the girls, Meera, who I decided was going to be based off of the information that we got out of the movie. I thought that her being classified as a high elf would be best for her race, not only just because, I think she's got the structure for it, but also because of her family lineage. She seems to be from like a more traditional, sort of stubborn family. That's sort of the energy that I got, and so I think that high elf fit really well into that, especially with the idea of her being a wild child, so she's sort of going against these half-elven values, which I really like for an idea. As well as I decided to make, in terms of her class, she is a bard barbarian, which is that the best, multi-class on the planet? Probably not. Do I care? No, I don't play to powerhouse. I play for story, okay? And I knew that I wanted all of the girls to have separate classes, but I still also wanted them to be bards, because that just feels like such an intrinsic part of the character and the story that I could not have them be bards. So they are all bards, but they are also all a different multi-class as well. And in Meera's case, she is a barbarian, because I think that fits the sort of wild child thing that she has going on as well. And I think that that's something that would, that's definitely something that I think a high elven family would go crazy over, is their daughter becoming a barbarian. This sort of stereotypical savage, like, not intellectual class, if you will. So I think that that is definitely the vibe I wanted to go for Meera. In terms of the outfit that I designed for her, I wanted to keep some of her skin showing, because I think that the idea is that her family is more traditional in their values, I think. And so, even though she's not showing a lot of skin, I think she'd still be showing too much for her family, and I think that's the important part here. And also, she's a barbarian, and barbarians sort of have that stereotypical thing where they, are only in rags and stuff. I don't really know why that is, but, I wanted to go with that energy. And in the same vein, I didn't want her wearing any armor or whatnot, because, barbarians don't wear armor, obviously. When it came to the design themes throughout her outfit, I knew that obviously I wanted to sort of keep these high boots, and I ended up sort of translating that to her gloves as well, just because that made sense to me. As well as I saw this TikTok where this person had these, like, hair accessories that went on the end of your hair that looked like little flails. And I thought that was so cool, so I wanted to sort of incorporate that idea into her design. However, I thought that having flails at the end of your hair would be a little bit dangerous in a combat scenario. So I decided to put them at the top of her head. Is it still dangerous? Yes, but I think it would be less so. And so I wanted to incorporate that a little bit into the rest of her design. making it a part of her like chain that connects to her belt, as well as putting it on the end of her weapon. And you'll notice throughout all of the girls' designs, I did keep the little tassels that they have on each of their belts. I'm not sure if they have some sort of meaning in Korean culture, but I wanted to keep that from their original designs, as well as I kept all the same colors and stuff like that, as a fun, I would say, callback to their origins, to their Korean origins, since I am sort of removing that part of them by making them fantasy, you know. Of course, when it came to colors and stuff, I had to keep her primary color as sort of this dark, it's actually not black, it's like a dark purple, but it just looks black. As well as, I went with a pink color, but I went with a darker pink color because I didn't want it to clash with her hair any, considering it shows up so close to it, as well as the yellow color that all of the girls wear in these specific outfits for this song. So I wanted to keep that yellow throughout this outfit as well. I did tone it down and just make it more of the design pattern of the outfit. I also made sure in her design to make it a little more alternative than the other girls, just because I think that's the energy that I get from Meera, is that she is a little bit more on the alternative side. So I did give her a couple rivets, a couple belts, you know, the chain, the little side belts connecting her skirt together, you know, just for some minor, teensy, tiny punk elements to include. Other than that, though, I don't really think I have anything else to say on Meera. So here she is. I hope you like her. Let me know what you think of her design down below. Alright, next up we have probably the fan favorite of all of the girls, Zoe. Now, for Zoe, I wanted, based off of her background and stuff, I wanted her to be obviously split race. Because, I mean, that just makes sense for her character. And obviously, that leaves one particular choice, very easy to choose, which is half elf. Because, I mean, it's right there, you know? However, I didn't want her to just be half elven, half human, because in my head, I just don't think human and elven cultures are that different. You know, I definitely think they are different, but I think humans are pretty good at adapting in anywhere. I just wanted there to be more of a difference. And I also thought that a different race sort of suited her as well, which is water genasi. I don't know what it is about the idea of her being a water genasi, but in my head, it just fits so well for her character. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to make her a half elf, but instead of human, she's going to be half elf, half water genasi. So was this maybe all an excuse to give her cool water hair? Maybe. I don't know. For her class, based off of the way that she fights in the movie, I felt it was only right that I make her a monk. The way that, like, in the plane scene where she just, like, takes somebody down with, like, her leg or whatever, that's so monk, that's so cool. I do think that Rogue also could have fit her as well, but she doesn't quite seem like, you know, the stealthiest type, so I thought that monk was a better choice overall. Now, I also think that her weapons, I'm not sure what they're called, because they're not like kunai, obviously. Two different cultures right there, but they sort of give me similar energy to those. They remind me of darts, and darts are a very common monk weapon, so that's another reason why I thought she would fit within the monkular region. Design-wise for her, I wanted to go with something very baggy and something, you know, more on the lax side. Obviously, I mean, she wears baggy clothes in the show itself. We typically see her a lot in baggy pants, as well as, you know, that big hoodie at the end of the movie. So I knew that I wanted her to be in baggy clothes, just because that seems to be the style that she wears, as well as that seems like it would be great for freedom of movement as a monk. So I basically just gave her a very simple designed outfit with this sort of sheer blue shawl over top of this, like, large blue and black, almost like a jumpsuit. They definitely look like they could be two different pieces, the pants and the top. I had imagined them as one, as like a jumpsuit of sorts. They could totally be two different pieces as well, like an upper, like, jacket or something, and then pants underneath. I wanted to keep her style a lot simpler than the other girls, because in my head, that's just kind of the vibe of a monk, is that they are simpler than other classes. I don't know. Maybe it's just because like monks are supposed to be like, you know, chill and vibey and get rid of materialism and all of that sort of idea. So, which is why I maybe gave her less of a detailed outfit. Not that I didn't make it detailed, you know, but just a little bit less so. It's more relies on the sort of pattern of the pants to make it interesting, as well as the tassels and stuff. I didn't want to go too overboard with things that could impede her movement, basically. I also noticed that I changed her shoes at one point. She had like these big chunky shoes on, and I just did not think that they fit the vibe. I also think that slimming down the sort of profile of the shoe at the bottom helps the silhouette of the outfit. Because I think with the chunky shoe, it sort of just read completely chunky all the way down. But then when you have this sort of more like form-fitting shoe, it definitely sort of balances out the design. I also did just a wee bit of off-camera mining and found some lily pads to adorn her body with. I don't know what it is. I cannot help it. Once I stop recording, I'm just like, oh, you know what I need to do? Add this and this and this. And I was like, okay, let me just test it out and see if I like it. And then I did like it, and so I kept it. So apologies you didn't get to see me adding all of the lily pads and stuff to her design. But I thought it was a fun fit for the idea that she is, you know, a water genasi. I felt like, you know, aside from the fact that she was blue and had water hair, there was some of those elements missing. So I think the water genasi part is fun. So gave her this big old hat because, you know, monks be wearing hats. And then I gave her some charms and get it on part of her shoe design as well. And that is pretty much Zoe. I really, you know, even though her design is simpler, I would say, than the other girls, I do really like the way it comes out. You know, there's nothing bad with a simple design. Just have to make the shape language and the small details that you do add, you know, work. And I hope that's what I did. So alright, and last but not least, we have who everybody is jealous of, Rumi. Should have been me, I tell ya, it should have been me. With Rumi, I felt it was only natural to have her be a tiefling. With Rumi, I decided that I was going to design her with the idea in mind that everything in the movie has already happened. So this is after all of her friends know that she is a half-demon, right? Because I really wanted to be able to show off those aspects of her, and if I was just designing her as if she was still keeping all of that hidden, I feel like I wouldn't have been able to have, you know, as much creative freedom as I wanted to. And I also thought that, you know, she would kind of just look like, you know, the other girls, like an elf of some sort. Obviously, I had to make her a tiefling. I literally couldn't make her anything else other than a tiefling. And tieflings, very commonly, have horns and a tail, and I really wanted to be able to add those aspects into her character design without having to hide them anywhere. So I just opted to design her based off of the idea that, you know, everyone now knows that she is a demon. As for her, multi-class, obviously, we've got the bard for her, but I wanted her to also be a paladin. I was going between fighter and paladin, because I mean, she wields a sword that's pretty heavily in the fighter category, you know, but I thought that paladin worked better for her, considering that I think that her oath would be something like protecting the Han Moon, keeping it sealed, stuff like that. And I also knew that I did want her to be in armor, because it's one of the things that I'm trying to get better at designing is armor. I'm not very good at designing it currently, and I don't feel very creative when I'm designing it, because I'm just like, I feel like I'm just looking at other people's, you know, their armor designs, or looking at armor in real life, and just being like, sort of stealing those designs and aspects, and, you know, like mixing them and changing them to be my own. But I'm not at that point in my design process yet where I can design armor just straight out of my head without looking at a reference, you know? And I would like to get to that point. I thought about maybe giving her some greaves, gauntlets and stuff, but I opted against it. I think that, and it's probably the only thing that I wish that I had done in this design, because I don't end up doing it, I kind of wish I had given her demon hands, where they've got like the claws and everything. I didn't really think about doing it until afterwards, and I already made changes to her afterwards. I didn't want to go back and make even more changes. There weren't anything massive, not like the lily pad with Zoe. So in terms of her design, obviously I kept her iconic braid I did bring that into her tail a little bit, where the end of her tail, she has like this fluffy part that also goes into a braid, and I kept the little, I don't know what it's called, the hair ribbon that they have. I kept that on her hair, as well as I put one on her tail for fun. I don't add it in until like way later, but I do give her her tassel, of course. And coming up with the design for her horns was very difficult for me. I don't know why, I just could not get a shape that I liked. And thinking about the idea of her like hiding her tieflingness, you know, the tail is a lot easier, because I imagine that maybe she just kept it hidden underneath her clothes. Maybe she wore a much more fuller like dress previously that kept her tail hidden. Her horns are a little bit of a different story though. I could imagine that maybe they were shaved off and hidden just beneath her hair, and now she's let them grow out again. Or maybe that her horns aren't that visible. Because you'll notice when we get into the coloring later, I color her horns and part of her tail the same color as her patterns. And those don't really start to appear until she feels this shame and guilt, right? Maybe her horns just don't appear for a while until, you know, this guilt eats away at her. And then maybe at this point, she's just proud of who she is. She's not ashamed that she's part demon. So she's, you know, willingly sharing that with the world. I didn't talk too much about this when I was doing Meera and Zoe. For their weapons, I kind of just kept them very similar. Obviously, with Meera's weapon, I went closer to what her weapon looks like at the end of the movie, but I didn't have a reference pulled up. I was just going off of memory, so it's probably very inaccurate. Weapons are another thing that I really need to improve upon, but not here, not today. So I was just kind of going vaguely similar to their weapons from the movie. I didn't really change too many details about them, other than, you know, on Meera's, I gave it the little flail end, and on Rumi's, I've given her a little tassel to match the tassel that she wears, because it's like the only pink that she has on her, aside from, you know, within her demon elements. So I wanted a little bit more pink on there. And colors was very difficult for me to choose on Rumi, because I think the other girls very clearly have colors, right? And obviously their colors of their hair, you know, it's pink and it's blue. I say it's blue. Zoe's color is actually yellow, I think, which is weird to me that it's not blue, but you know, I digress. It's pink and blue and yellow, and then we have purple, right? But then the thing is, in the movie, they don't really stick to one color scheme for the girls, which is fine. I mean, the movie is more so based in reality. You know, you don't really have a color scheme in reality unless you're one of those people that do. So it was really hard for me to choose colors. I ended up going with more of a like white with the armor, because to symbolize sort of like her outfit at the end of the movie, where all of their clothes turn white. I like that. In the outfit that she wears in the very first song, you know, she has colors from everybody. She's got this yellow, she's got blue, and she's just got pink on her, right, from her friends. And I tried to incorporate that within her color scheme. I tried making the chainmail blue. Obviously I kept like that sort of half skirt thing she has going on as yellow, and I just did not like it. Like, it wasn't working for me. So you'll see later on I do change the blue of the chainmail to be more of a gray lavender color, and I changed the pink elements to be slightly more purple. I just decided that I wanted to lean more into the purple elements with her, because I just was not liking the way the other ones looked. I probably could have been more creative and more interesting with it, but girl, I'm bad at colors. Okay, it's one of the things I'm working on. I'm not very good at it so far, so I feel like maybe I flopped a little in the coloring of Rumi's outfit. I think that she is definitely the weakest of the three in terms of the designs. I feel like maybe I could have pushed it a little bit harder. I don't know. There was some, like, intentionality behind the decisions that I made. Obviously, putting her in armor, giving her more of a feminine, you know, shape to her. I decided to give her a little bit of asymmetry with the sort of half skirt, as well as, it's hard to tell, but the sort of back chainmail cape she has on is cut off at an angle, because I think that sort of symbolizes her, like, demon side to her. I think that symbolizes that pretty well. So there was a few things, but I feel like I could have gone even further. And this was my second pass at her. I'm sure maybe if I did a couple more passes, I could have come up with something better, but I don't know. I think that overall, she is my least favorite of the three, but maybe you think something different. You can let me know in the comments if you like this design, or you can let me know what you think about what I could have done differently for her. As well as, this is something I didn't touch on, was any of the girls' subclasses. Because I just didn't look too deeply into that, but if you have an idea of what these girls' subclasses could be, I would love to know that in the comments as well. Alright, that's gonna round off the end of this video, I do believe. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you like the designs of these characters. You can let me know what you think about them in the comments down below. Also, if you do like these designs and you want to see more of them, you should subscribe to me, because I love turning things into fantasy/D&D. Love it with my whole heart. So, I'm bound to do more of these in the future. As well as you can follow me over on Blue Sky and Twitch. And if you're interested in getting, some of my artwork for yourself, I do have commissions open. So thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye!